Hey there, I'm Nathan. I go by Peteparker, and every week I do comic book reviews because that's the rule around my house. If I want to keep buying them, then I have to review them online. So this is going to be the review for Punisher #1, written by Greg Rucka and drawn by Marco Cicchetto. I have really interesting feelings about this. Well, I guess they're relatively interesting. I have different feelings about this book than when the first time I picked it up. This is not a book that you can read while other things are going on, while somebody is talking to you or interrupting you, or you need to stop in the middle and pick it up somewhere else. This is a very deep book, and it's very consuming. You need to pay attention to all the details, and you need to really get in the mindset of what's happening here, because throughout the book you see it mostly from the viewpoint of one police officer. And you don't get it right away. So it's also a book that requires, it's hard to say requires, but is best when you reread it one or more times to really get the beginning, who everybody is, because you're really not introduced to who these people are and what exactly is happening until you read the second half of the book. The first half of the book has a typical kind of Punisher retribution kind of story in it. There's a bunch of bad guys kill a bunch of people at a wedding, and then the Punisher comes in, finds out where they are from the police that are investigating it secretly, and he kills all them. So that's great, right? And you're like, well, I don't know who any of those people are or anything that's going on. But then you get the second half of the story that's like this. And it's basically an interview of the cop who was giving the information to the Punisher and how he got to that point. And it's very cool. You get a lot of kind of narrative viewpoint or narrative details about the situation, but it's almost like two different stories of the Punisher in one book. And it's really great. I don't see them being able to pull this off in every issue from here on out. But it's a really great way to introduce this, because it definitely makes you go back once you get to the end and you know who these characters are, like who the policeman is, what his history is with the Punisher. It makes you go back and read the first story again from start to finish, and then you really see all the stuff you missed. So the first time you read the first story, it's creepy for sure, it's vicious and violent, of course, but it basically reads as any crime drama that you've ever seen or read before. It's not all that unique. And if you've read any Punisher before, then that's kind of the same also. But then you get this whole nother level of detail, peeling back the onion, I guess is a good way to put it. You get names, you get the circumstances, why this whole setup has happened, and you go back. And as you go through it again, you understand the mindset that all these people are in, the different policemen, the Punisher, etc. And it really opens it up to much wider of a story than it was previously. It's very interesting, and I think it's really good that way too. While a lot of #1s will take you through basically kind of a setup of who these characters are and what their motivations are, and then get into story in the second, third, etc. issues. This one kind of gives you both the first and second issue all in one, but it has you read the second one before the first one, more or less, so that when you go back and read the second story, which is first in here, I know, very confusing, you read the first story in here again, you're like, oh wow, this is really awesome. You get a full depth without even having to wait for #2. And I think that's a really smart move for a #1 issue, because then you have people who fully understand the situation, got the kind of story that you want to write for the series, but you didn't have to invest an entire issue to the setup. So it's a really awesome and different way to do a #1, and I'm glad that I jumped onto this. Now, I did receive a question as to whether or not I thought this was going to be able to beat the Punisher Max series that's been going on for a long time, or the previous Punisher, I guess that was Max series before that. It's difficult to say. This is still just a first issue, but it's really a great start. It's amazing how much blood and violence that is actually in this, and it's still not a Max comic, but it's definitely along the lines of a true Punisher comic, at least in my opinion. I mean, these guys have a lot to live up to for the past couple Punisher series, and I think this is a very, very good start for that. Now, it's always early to tell what the whole series is going to be like based on #1, but like I said, this is a really good start. So if you like the Punisher at all, if you like creepy, dark violence, then this is probably going to be a great book for you. I'm definitely on board for at least #2, probably #3, to see how everything starts to play out and how it starts to settle more into a typical routine. But I think this is great. I didn't have any issues with the art. The story really confused me at first, as it's supposed to, but then again, the very first time that I was trying to read this, I was at my parents' house for dinner or whatever, and there was a lot of other things going on, so I gave up and put it down. So the second time I picked it up, I was totally expecting to be kind of let down again. This is too deep, this is too complicated or whatever, but it is great. Give it the devotion it needs, and it will pay off. I definitely think this is a 5 out of 5, especially for a #1 issue, and I think if you're any kind of Punisher fan, then you definitely need to be involved here. I will give you a glimpse at one of the creepy images in here. Basically, the Punisher hunts down the guys who killed a bunch of people, and he goes into the bar that they're celebrating at and cuts the power, kills all of them except for one last guy, and then the power's still out, so the guy's trying to find a light or whatever to find his way out because all he's finding is dead bodies, and he finally finds a lighter, and he gets that image right there. I don't know if it's coming across as dark as it is, but let's see. There you go. So the way that it's kind of washed out to top to bottom here and extremely dark on the top really like influences how that light is coming at him, and the fact that the guy is on his knees or whatever and just turned a lighter on and that light's kind of going up from his stomach. It's really great, and the webcam here is making it much, much too light to really see how gritty and dark and creepy that image would be. I would imagine that guy probably peed his pants right there, because that's definitely what I would do, especially if I was a criminal. But somehow he survived, so we'll find out about that later. So anyway, great job on everybody that was involved on Punisher #1. I'm really looking forward to the rest, and I'm really glad that it's such a good start to what could have been a disaster for a new series. So great job by everybody involved. 5 out of 5. Pick it up, people. You'll like it. So that's it for that review. If you like my reviews, look for other ones on YouTube under Spidey207, and anywhere else under Peteparker, video reviews by Peteparker, reviews by Peteparker, and you'll run into them eventually. So otherwise, thanks for all the comments, and stay tuned for a lot more reviews coming today and tomorrow. Thanks a lot.